Welcome to First at Four. I'm Tom McIlroy and I'm here with a very special guest, Victorian Opposition Leader Daniel Andrews. Thanks for being with us, Mr Andrews.
Very good to be with you.
Tell us why you're in Ballarat today.
We've been here for a community morning tea that Sharon Knight and Jeff Howard ran down at Sharon's office. We've been out to the tech park out at the university to meet with IBM and see the fantastic work they're doing. I'm going to go and meet the new mayor just after this, and then we're out to see Eureka Stadium and get briefed on where some of the development plans are up to with that.
So a busy day.
Yeah, a busy day. It's always good to be in Ballarat. It's sun shining. It's beautiful.
That's great. You've been opposition leader for a year now. How do you rate your first year in the job?
Well, look, it's obviously very challenging to transition from having been in government for a long period of time to being out of office. But I think the whole team's worked really hard this year to hold Ted Baillieu to account. He made a lot of promises last year, and we've been working hard to see that he actually delivers on those. We've been very unified, very focused. We haven't been sort of bickering amongst ourselves. We've been very, very focused on doing our job, which, after all, is not just a job on behalf of Labor voters. It's a job on behalf of every single Victorian. If you've got a good opposition, then that usually means you get a better government.
And your front bench, how do you rate their performance, particularly related to issues in regional Victoria and cities like Ballarat?
A very strong team. Obviously, there's a whole range of people that had the opportunity and the good fortune to serve as ministers in the previous government, but there's also some fresh blood there as well. 9 of the 22 weren't in the cabinet of the previous government, so it's a good mixture. And look, we're very focused on regional Victoria, regional cities as well as smaller towns. You know, I know this well. I grew up in country Victoria, and many of my team live in country Victoria or came from country Victoria, whether it's John Lenders in terms of agriculture, Jacinta Allen. Lots of the team have a really healthy appreciation for just how important rural and regional cities, rural and regional Victoria are. You can't have a strong state if you don't share that strength and that growth across the whole of our great state. So we're very proud of our focus on regional Victoria when we're in government, and we're keen to keep that going.
One of the criticisms of successive state governments is that they take regional Victoria for granted, and when it comes to election time they'll show up and make promises. How do you think the Baillieu team is doing in that regard? Well,
it certainly made lots of promises last year, but I think in many respects the talk of 2010 has not really been turned into action during 2011. Let's hope 2012 is different. But whether it's the helipad down at the hospital or indeed the very big promises that were made at the hospital in terms of additional beds, additional services, we haven't seen too much of that in the last 12 months. The promises around country roads, promises in relation to rural and regional jobs, and then of course the other basic services in terms of education, upgrades of schools, things of that nature, or there's lots of individual examples where promises were made and they haven't been kept. But in some respects, it's perhaps all summed up by the fact that we've got Peter Ryan running around the state talking about a $1 billion regional growth fund. But when you scratch away and look at the detail, there's only $500 million in it. So it's a very unique fund, and I think that tells the story of this government. They're very good at saying things, very good at promising, but in terms of delivering, it's a different story. We were not a perfect government. People have found fault with some of the things we did, but I don't think anybody could credibly say that we ignored regional Victoria. We governed for the whole state, and we were very determined to undo a lot of the damage that was done during those 7 years of the Kennett years, where the tap was really turned off on rural and regional areas, not just on small country towns, but on large regional cities like this one. So we were determined to turn that around. We're proud of having done that, and my personal commitment is to keep that work going, and that's why I spend a lot of my time in Ballarat and Bendigo and Geelong, but also in a lot of smaller communities as well.
One of the issues of the day is smart meters, which was commenced under the former government and continued under this government. How do you think that they've responded to that problem? And
well, you know, smart meters are so bad, Ted Baillieu's not keeping them. So I think he'll probably come under a bit of fire and get a bit of flack for having been ultra critical of this important infrastructure rollout before he became premier, and now suddenly he's a bit of a convert to it. But this is an important infrastructure upgrade. There's a much better selling needs to be done, much better detail, more information needs to be provided to households to better understand and to be, if you like, clearer on what the benefits of smart meters are. But in terms of a national grid, in terms of the growth of solar, in terms of conserving energy and ultimately driving down bills, this sort of technology and all the additional technology that can be built onto a smart meter, but it's the actual platform, there's a very strong case to have made this investment. There's perhaps more needs to be done to explain and to make sure that individual consumers understand the benefits of smart meters. But I was very encouraged to listen to Michael O'Brien this morning talking about some of the things that they plan to do as a government in 2012 in terms of the in-home, the panel where you'll be able to read and see how much you're using, things like that. I think that is the next step, and I'm encouraged to see that the government seems committed to taking that next step. I'll leave it to Victorians to make a judgment about whether Mr Bayou and Mr O'Brien's actions in government have any sort of accord with the ultra criticism they ran before they became the government.
And just one last question. Ahead of the Christmas season, you've got young children and a family. You're looking forward to some downtime. What's on your wish list from Santa? Well,
I don't know. It's my Santa wish list is probably a little bit of quiet time with my family at the end of the year, and I think that I'll get that. My parents have got a farm up in the northeast of Victoria, so we'll spend a little bit of time there, and then a little bit of time down at the beach, which the kids always enjoy. So 2 or 3 weeks without the phone ringing so much will be a good thing for them, and I'll very much enjoy that.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Pleasure, thank you, and all the very best to you.
Thank you. First at 4 will be back next year from the 9th of January. From everyone at the Courier, we're wishing you a very Merry Christmas and have a safe holiday break.